All right. Hey, everyone. Guy here from Switchboard. Let's jump on into BrandCamp. This entire structure, this entire thing that we're going to talk about today is around the idea that good storytelling inside of your business and organization is the best way to communicate the thing that you believe, the thing that you're trying to sell. Even nonprofits are trying to sell something, they're trying to sell an idea. But that story is the best way to communicate that value and get an audience, of people, a hopeful customer to take action and engage with your business or organization. And so the businesses and organizations that think correctly, think well about telling their story are the ones that often will do well. The reason why we think that story is the best for communicating what you do, what you think is valuable, is because people are ready to hear stories. Way before we can read, we are hearing stories. We communicate to each other the value of things, things that we enjoy, things that we love, things that were interesting or exciting. We do that through communication by telling stories to each other. And we start hearing those stories from really young ages, which means that as a people, we are primed and ready to receive story. So what's great about that is that the organizations and the people that are good communicators and good storytellers, there is a built-in audience inside of humankind for that good story, because we want to receive stories. The challenge with that is because people are so ready to receive story that if we don't do a good job of communicating the story of our business and organization, people will assume for us what that story is. And so we want to make sure that we're communicating really clearly, because people are excited, willing, and they are ready to hear stories. And so we want to make sure that we're communicating that effectively. Every good story has 7 plot points. There are lots. When we're going to walk through what these 7 stories are, kind of at a high level, and then I'm going to show you with a pretend company called Acme Painting Company, how Acme Painting Company uses these different 7 plot points of their story to help communicate effortlessly with an audience. I hope that as you start seeing this first structure, just kind of seeing how we think about this story or storytelling in your business organization, that you'll start to understand that. And then I really hope that when you see it applied to a business, you'll be able to start seeing yourself inside of this thing, and you'll understand how to start doing this thing for yourself. I'd recommend you could take some notes. There'll be little pointers in here and things to write down. But ultimately, at the end of this, I hope that you guys start writing out some of these for yourself, for your own art, for your own organization, for your business that you're a part of, a nonprofit that you love. Yeah, every business, every organization, anybody that's trying to say something should have these figured out. And so I'd say start kind of writing these down. So we're going to go high level, and then we're going to dig deep into a pretend organization. In one of these ones, I just as a joke, I said, has anybody, has anybody heard of Acme Painting Company before? And a bunch of people raised their hands. And I was like, oh no, shoot, that was a joke. And I'm sorry. I don't think it's a real company because we made it up. So here we go. Let's jump into the 7 good plot points of any 7 plot points of any good story. The first plot point is that there is a character of the story. Some of these might feel a little bit simplistic, but I hope that you'll start to understand how these things get worked into your organization. That character is we often call the hero of the story. So one of the questions that we should ask is, who is the customer and what do they want? We need to focus on the customer's main goal or desire, identifying what they truly want as it relates to your service or product. One of the reasons I'm glad that I heard a bunch of your little introductions is that there are a lot of nonprofits in here. A lot of this language that you'll see in here might feel like the word product. Often we can think of the word product as like an actual like thing to sell. These are products. But our organizations sell, I said that a little bit, but they sell an idea. And as you're seeing some of this language that might be about a product, I just want you to know that we have done this for so many nonprofits, and the work is identical. But rather than trying to sell a cup of coffee or a watch, you're trying to sell the idea that your organization, your nonprofit, is valuable and worth supporting. And you're trying to convince people As you're thinking about your year-end giving or your philanthropy, would you consider us? Because this work that we're doing is important. And so this language is the same. Whether you are a for-profit business, you're trying to sell art yourself, sell some idea or some products, anything, all of this is the same for nonprofits and for-profit organizations. So who is the customer? What do they want? We need to focus on the main goal or desire, identifying what they truly want as it relates to your service or product. One important thing to note, you are not the hero of your story. This is a mistake that so many businesses and organizations, big and small, make. And truthfully, I think that sometimes in the nonprofit space, this mistake can be made a little bit easier because people are so passionate about the thing that sometimes it's easy to kind of get lost in the work of what's happening rather than the person that's being served. It sounds a little counterproductive, but it's a thing that is not uncommon in nonprofits. So when we're thinking about this first step of any good story, there is a hero to that story, and it is not us. We are not. You are not the hero of the story. Your customer is the hero of the story. Then, once we have acknowledged and figured out who the hero of the story is, we realize that this hero has a problem. What is the primary challenge that is standing in their way? And when we think of a problem, we think of three different things. There's external problems, philosophical problems, and external, internal, and philosophical problems. The external problem is a physical or surface level issue. The internal problem is how that problem makes them feel. This is very important. We're going to spend some time talking about the internal problem. And then philosophical it's the bigger kind of like why that touches on fairness or universal values. Sometimes when you're using language around the philosophical problem, it's words like ought or shouldn't, like, or deserve. No one deserves X, Y, Z. No one should have to blank. So these are these kind of three different layers of problem language. And when we're communicating in our marketing, we need to understand what the problem is that our hero, the hero of the story, is feeling, so that we know how to actually communicate what we do to solve that problem. A major messaging disconnect. Businesses and organizations often sell solutions to external problems, but people buy solutions to internal problems. So remember that the external problem is the physical thing. It's a surface level thing. It might even be the thing that you actually sell. Like it's the heart. It's this thing itself. But that's not why people actually show up and part with their energy, part with their resources, part with their dollars. They do all of that because of the internal problem that they feel. So with the hero, kind of that main problem is that people talk about themselves like they're the hero all the time. And in relationship to the problem, we forget the actual motivation for why people make decisions in relationship to their dollars. So we have a character, the hero of the story, has a problem, and then meets a guide. The guide, this is where we finally show up in our customer story. And why should the customer trust you? We need to position our brand as the guide by showing two things: empathy and authority. Empathy is understanding the customer's feelings, and authority is demonstrating expertise. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's Teddy Roosevelt. I need to go look that up. Every time I do this, I think to myself, I gotta go do that. But I'm almost positive it's Teddy Roosevelt. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So in relationship to empathy, we need to tell people that we care about them, so that when we try to solve their problem through something that we have that has some expertise, they will actually care about that because they know that we actually care about them. To help you kind of understand how this works, let's just talk a little bit about some marketing that often happens in healthcare. Some of you might be associated with some healthcare kinds of things. I don't know. I have given this presentation in front of doctors before, and it's always a little interesting. And most of them end up chuckling at the end because this is true. Why do hospitals keep telling us about their MRI machines? If you are a doctor and you have given your entire career, you're young, you're all of your young years working really hard in school, and then you go off to undergrad and med school and you do residency, and you spend all day, every day thinking about the minutia of all of these things, you may understand the difference in these different MRI machines. But the problem is that I don't. I'm an idiot when it comes to all things medical. I have something called vasovagal syncope. It just means that I get really squeamish whenever there's anything related to do with blood. If you were to, if we were to sit and have dinner and you're like, hey, I broke my femur, and start telling me about it, there's a very good chance that I'm going to be laying on the ground in just a couple short minutes. I don't understand this part of your world. If you tell me in some sort of really specific scientific kind of language all about this new MRI machine and the value of it, it doesn't mean anything to me. It means nothing. I once went to a business after hours kind of thing in St. Cloud, eating little like cocktail sausages in the barbecue sauce with a little, with a little glass of wine or whatever, one of these things that we've all been to 1,000 of. And it was because they wanted us to all come and see this new MRI machine at their business. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. Here's the big problem with that. I assume for you that you have the resources you need to do your job well. By you spending time telling me all about this thing, you are focusing on your credibility. You forgot about the empathy in that. Remember, we've got empathy and authority. You have forgot about empathy, and you're just leading with authority. But the thing is, I don't really care about your authority because you haven't shown me in any kind of capacity that you care about me. I think what I actually want to know, if I'm trying to make a healthcare decision for me, for my family, what I want to know is that when I am sitting on the end of that bed and the doctor wheels the chair and says, I'm so sorry, guy, you have X, Y, and Z. Your family, your daughter, your wife have X, Y, and Z. Is there care behind that? And again, I think I said this. We assume for you that you have all the things that you need to do your job well. You don't need to spend time on all of these accolades. If some doctor that you met, or let's leave medicine for a second. Come here. Let's leave medicine for a second. If you meet someone and there is something that they can do to help you, but all they do is tell you about all of their degrees and all about their certificate programs and all of this stuff, we just glaze over. We have no interest in listening to just diatribe after diatribe all about their accolades. What I want to know is, do you care about me as a human being? And have you given your life in some capacity to help me meet a need? Because if you do, I would really like to hear about how you could meet that need. This is the human condition. We are looking for solutions to problems, and we will listen to the people that show us that they care about us. And then I'll be super stoked that my doctor has all the right tools and machines and stuff. But I'm not going to get there until I know that I have been cared for well. My family has been cared for well. So our character has a problem. Hero of the story has a problem. And then they meet a guide, which is us. We need to lead with empathy, and then we get to bring in our authority. And then who gives them a plan? What clear path will help them achieve their goal? We often call this, in marketing, we call this a process plan. List 3 to 5 simple steps that guide customers from start to finish, making the journey feel straightforward and achievable. The actual number of steps it takes to solve your customer's problem is staggering. If you think about, I'll use my business as an example. Sometimes in these I'll kind of like pick on a person or something, but there's so many of you. I'll just use mine. If we're going to make a website for some organization, right? When they come to us, they need a website. They've engaged with us in some capacity. And then by the time we go and we deliver a website for them that heads out into the world to communicate their need, there are thousands of steps it takes, from the first one of just like, hey, we should talk about your idea, to this website is out in the world, capturing leads, selling something, selling an idea, helping people understand what it is you care about. There are so many steps in that process. If in our process plan, we lay out all of the steps, everything it's going to take to actually get to the end of your story well in relationship to this pain point that you feel is lack of website, crummy website, website that isn't converting, whatever that is, we will overwhelm people with the sheer volume of what it will take to accomplish this. But in a process plan, we want to boil that thing down in 3 to 5 steps to help people realize that they are dealing with someone who is an expert in this thing and understands their pain point. So we lay out these very simple steps for what it will take for them to engage with our business, organization, or idea. We need to make it feel simple. And again, we will talk when we jump into Acme painting, I'll show you what a process plan actually looks like. But it starts with a call to action, which is our next step. So again, we have a hero. We understand their problem. They meet a guide that's us for the first time. We're going to lay out a plan for them of how to solve their problem. And then once we've done that, we have to call them to action. What action should they take? Make it clear and easy for the customer to take the next step with a direct call to action button. Often in marketing, these are called CTAs. Maybe you know that phrase, or maybe you've heard it a bunch and didn't know what it is. But a CTA is a call to action. It is like the buy now button, donate now, schedule your meeting. Whatever that button is on a website, like if you go on any website, there should be a really good, strong call to action. Truthfully, on most websites, the call to action button is rough. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But then we need to offer a transitional call to action for those who aren't quite ready. An example is a free resource. We have all engaged with these transitional calls to action on websites probably without realizing it. If you've ever tried to download the free PDF with some great information, that's a transitional call to action. For whatever reason, you weren't ready, able, capable of clicking on the main call to action. There was something that was still holding you back. But this free piece of content, that sounds nice. And so we'll click on that to try to get some more of our questions answered. And then there's always more. There's another main call to action button in there. So what action do we want them to take when they engage with us? That's on the web, that's in our marketing pieces, and when we're talking to people, telling them about what we do, where there's some action that we want them to take. It is estimated that people need to be asked 20 times before they take action. 20 times is a lot. One of the problems I think in marketing, especially when you're just kind of jumping into it on behalf of yourself or your organization, is that we feel that we need to reinvent the wheel all the time. This is the thing that small business owners feel. Every time you sit down in front of your computer or your phone and you're getting ready to go and post on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever you're communicating, maybe you're writing some drip email campaigns, we feel like we have to be novel, new. We have to do something that hasn't been done before. The problem is that big giant organizations with unlimited R&D budgets, research and development, and marketing budgets, none of them are doing this. If you guys, if you watch any sort of football this fall, I watched a handful of the Minnesota Vikings games. Let's say watching the game is like maybe 3 hours long. In that 3 hours, you could see the exact same commercial a half a dozen times. Not even similar commercials. I'm talking about the exact same commercial by one company saying the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. And that's in 1 3-hour span. And as soon as they're done running that commercial, they will put that one on the shelf and they will hire new actors that look very similar to the last ones. They will take that same script, rewrite it a little bit, and set it in a similar but different environment and reshoot the exact same commercial. And they will run it over and over and over again because they know and understand this little piece of psychology in relationship to buying is that we need to ask people over and over and over again. We need to call them to action 20 times before they take action. So when you land on a website, you are going to see a call to action button. Hopefully, usually it is a good call to action button in a good place, often in the top right-hand corner, maybe in the lower center. And then as you scroll through that website, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you should see that same call to action button over and over because people need to be asked over and over. Now, let's say, Becky, I can see you. You and I are sitting at a little campfire. It's springtime, right? Let's go there in our minds for a second. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful May evening. There's people sitting there having a really fun time, and you're like, oh, guy, did you just bought that? You just bought that new bike, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I love biking, right? And you're like, I've been thinking about buying a bike, and I've been considering Store X, and I'm like, Becky, let me tell you about Store X. And I tell you about how competent they were. They understood me. They took measurements of my body. I didn't know that was a thing, and they helped me. And everything was so great. And I worked with this guy named Ron, and he was so nice. He really, really helped me a bunch. And then when it came to buy the bike, they weren't pushy at all. And it just was a really great experience. And the price, I looked up some prices online, and it was comparably priced, but I got all of this great service. I had to keep money in Central Minnesota. Becky, what just happened is that I just took up probably over the course of us sitting there, maybe drinking a little glass of wine, sitting by a campfire, I just ate up 19 of those asks. So understanding this kind of marketing doesn't mean that we should ignore really good customer service and all of the things that cause people to go out and refer us to their friends, family, and people that they come in contact with, because those are the best way to get rid of some of these asks. And now, Becky, when you show up on their website to schedule your measurement or buy your bike or whatever it is, you probably don't need to spend much time on the website because your new friend Guy at the campfire gave you all of the information. I answered all of the questions for you that allowed you to get through that 20. But if you didn't know anything, if you hadn't spent any time asking me, or anyone else, and you hadn't been on their website, we show up with a little bit of skepticism when we show up places. And we need to be over and over and over again, we need to be asked and shown that this organization, this business is worth parting with my energy, my resources, and my dollars. And so 20 times it's estimated. So we need to say the same thing over and over again. I would say truthfully, if you take one thing out of this, I hope you get better calls to action on your website and in your communication. And then I hope that you understand this discomfort that you feel when you sit down in front of your phone to make a social post, this discomfort of needing to say something new. I hope that you can just take that and you can set that thing aside and you can understand our organization meets a really specific need. I know I talked about what that need is yesterday and the day before. I'm going to say it again today because people need to be asked over and over again. And you will set aside this pressure, just like the slog of just coming up with new content over and over and over again. That doesn't mean that you have to copy and paste the exact same thing, but that same idea, you should be willing and able to say that over and over and over again. That's why your direct calls to action should be everywhere. I kind of already said that already. Book your spot. Buy now. If you're a service-based industry, think of anything service-based, lawyers, accountants, something where you're selling your time. Basically, there isn't an actual product. What you need for your call to action is something like schedule a meeting, schedule your call now, something like that. Marketing is really about getting bodies that are far apart close to each other, right? If you think of even someone that's just a block away, but they're sitting at their house and you're running your business in your house, that's an eternity away, right? Until you have some sort of communication with each other about how you can solve their need, you can solve a problem of their meet one of their needs. They're infinitely far away, even though they're in our town. But if you have a winsome website or winsome communication with good, clear calls to action, like schedule your meeting, that's all you need to do, because then your humanness gets to show up. You get to help them understand how you actually will meet their need in a real human and meaningful kind of way. So it's something like schedule a meeting. You're not really trying to sell anything. You can't. It's a crummy e-commerce model trying to sell something on a website if you're a service-based industry. So you need something like schedule a call. It's natural to self-select out of things. I think that we all, deep down inside, we kind of understand this. we might say things like we really want to go out or have fun with our friends, but if nobody calls and nobody asks, sometimes we're really happy that we were able to just like stay in and put on a show, you know? Or if we have canceled plans, that's something that's so just this little thing that we love, because sometimes we do want to self-select out of things. It's a very natural part of the human experience. We say things like, this sounds perfect for someone else, but it's probably not for me. This is for someone who's got it all figured out. And the implication there is I don't. So this is where that secondary or transitional call to action can help. It helps people get over that hurdle. Take our 2-minute health assessment, 10 kitchen tips to get you cooking, 5 most common marketing mistakes. These are little pain points that are causing people, well, we're trying to guess. In marketing, a lot of it is trying to guess. If someone isn't, as they're scrolling through your website, if they're not willing to click on your main call to action button, donate now, schedule a meeting, buy our thing, if they haven't clicked on that button, there is something that's holding them back. And we want to understand and know our customers, our current customers, so that we can understand before they were customers, what were some of the things that were kind of holding them back. And then from there, for possible customers, what we're trying to do is we're going to answer those questions on the verge of when they're happening, or maybe even before. And so, these are ways that we get to do that thing. Okay, once we have called them to action, their story can end in either success or in failure. So our hero has a problem, meets a guide. We're going to lay out a plan for them, call them to action. And if they say yes to us, if they say yes, in relationship, in regard to this aspect of their life, we want it to end in success. And if not, it will end in failure, which we'll talk about the failure bucket here in a second. But the success piece is what positive transformation awaits them if they say yes. We need to paint a picture of the customer's life after using your product, engaging with your brand, engaging with your idea or service, emphasizing how it solves their problem and fulfills their desire. At this little spot, I'd like to take a second just to ask this question of people. Do you believe that your product or service meets a need? Then we need to serve people by selling to them. Sometimes when you get to this spot here, it can feel a little weird. Every once in a while, you'll have people that they feel self-conscious about selling to someone. And I would say you should feel self-conscious about selling your service or your idea to someone if you don't believe in the thing that you're actually selling. But if you believe that it actually meets a need, if they say yes to you, they get to engage with a professional in this industry that cares about them before caring about themselves. That is success. We want that for them. And so we should serve those people. We should serve everyone by actually selling to them. And if you don't believe in what you do, this little sense of like, if you just said to yourself, like, I don't know if I do believe in that, I would encourage you to find something that you can be really passionate about, something that you care about, because life will be better. Life will be so much better if and when you are surrounded by people you care about, doing work that you care about. So that's what it looks like if for their story to end in success. Their problem, the pain points that they're feeling are solved. And if they say no to you and they ignore this solution that you're laying out for them, their story will end in failure in this regard. What negative outcome are they trying to avoid? Show what's at stake if they don't take action. This taps into their failure, loss, or disappointment. One thing to note is that failure is like salt in baking. You only need a really little bit, but you probably don't want to bake without it. There are lots of brands where it doesn't make a lot of sense to push heavy into failure language in marketing because sometimes it feels really heavy-handed, and we don't like to be coerced when we're trying to make decisions. We don't like to feel like someone's coercing us, and so we need to be really careful with the failure language. But there are some businesses and organizations that employ the failure language with great success. But if you're going to do that, you really need to do it in kind of a lighthearted, winsome kind of way. One of the industries that communicates almost exclusively from the failure bucket of their communication is allergy meds. Think about like the Mucinex, like the booger. It's like husband and wife booger and they're moving into your, they've got their suitcases and their furniture and they're going to move into your sinuses. And if you don't take care of it, you're going to have, this mucus problem in your life forever. That is failure language. Like Claritin commercial, you'll see some lady, she wakes up and it's like the screen is actually kind of hazy. Nothing looks great. And she's tired and a little lethargic. She doesn't want to, she doesn't want to walk the dog or play outside with her friends or in the garden or whatever. And then she takes her Claritin pill and then swing, everything is wonderful. And she's outside with her friends and she's walking her dog and she doesn't mind that, she's in the garden with all the pollen and whatnot. All of that is failure language. So if you have a brand, I would say think carefully about it. If you have a brand that you can bring some of that failure language in, it's a good thing and an okay thing to do. You just need to go really, really carefully with it. And if you are unsure of how to use failure language in your communication, in your marketing, I would say that it is best to err on the side of not using it because you don't want to alienate people. And this is the one of the fastest ways to alienate people inside of your marketing is to do this in a heavy-handed way. Okay, so here is our full 7-step storytelling metric. Again, we have a hero. We have the hero has a problem. They get to meet a guide, which is you, who lays out a plan for them, calls them to action, and then hopefully their story won't end in failure, but it will actually end in success because they say yes to you and your organization. Okay, we're going to use a real life example, so to speak, in relationship to Acme painting. Before we jump into that, if anybody has a question of any kind that, if there's something that you're thinking about, something that you want to know, feel free to ask it. Maybe we'll just take a couple minutes here for a Q&A if you want. We're going to do a much longer Q&A at the end. But if there's something that you're thinking about now, feel free to ask it. And then, we'll jump into the real life example after that.
Also, if you feel more comfortable entering it into the chat, myself
Great.
and Melissa will bring it forward for you.
It's great.
Because you asked and it's on my mind, when you said the call to action has the process plan has 3 to 5 steps. Yeah. What if the step is like 1 step? Like, do you break it into 3 steps or do you just sort of stick it with take this class, do this thing?
Yep. Shane, great question. I would say I've never seen a business model of any kind that is where just 1 step would be the thing. If you think about a website, the call to action button on the website is the first step of a process plan. So if you can meet somebody's need, if you can solve their problem by simply having them click that button, and then they never need to engage with you or your brand in any kind of way, then you do have a single step thing. But if by clicking on that button, it actually opens a conversation for you to actually engage with them, I would say you do have more than 1.
Thank you. Unfortunately, yes, I don't have a button that will solve the problems. That would be great, but yeah, I hear you.
If we all spent some time, if we could figure that thing out, we could make a massive impact in our world if we had that button. Yes.
Yeah, hi Guy. So I have a question because I do market more towards my market has shifted a lot from my own generation to younger generations. And I know that with younger generations, it seems like there's a lot of skepticism with the with the idea of the hero's journey in terms of marketing. They tend to be a lot more nuanced and they ask a lot more questions, as well as there are also being a lot of other cultural considerations that may come into it where people are a little more skeptical. How would you overcome that hurdle using this framework?
I would say if it's true, and I have no reason to doubt the sentiment, that people are getting more skeptical or more maybe inward focused. I think when we think about some of the impact of what phones have done, not just to a younger generation. If you get on any sort of subway or any sort of big, public transit, there are as many gray-haired people looking at these stupid things as there are kids looking at them. I mean, this is kind of a human condition thing. But if it's true that these younger generations are struggling in some of that thing, I would say that communication like this is actually even more important for them, because this isn't about us. This isn't about an older generation. This kind of language, if we do it well, it is about whoever you're trying to serve. And so maybe there's a translation issue where you could be struggling to help them understand that what you actually want to do is help meet their need. But it is a human condition. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter what kind of cultural influences you are consuming or have been shaped by. We are looking for solutions to the problems that we feel. How we maybe communicate some of that might need to change a little bit, but people are looking for solutions to problems. And I don't think the younger generation is any different. So if we really truly understand what their problem is and we can communicate a solution that includes us helping them, I think, and again, that's not always easy. I think it's simple, just not easy. But I think that I know that they respond to this same kind of language well. It just might, the translation thing might be a little harder.
Okay, thank you, Guy.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's maybe jump back in, and this is, I hope now, as we start to see this unfold for Acme Painting Company, you'll start to see for yourself how this could actually work out inside of your business and organization. And again, be making little notes, put them in the chat if you got questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay. So our character, one thing to note before we jump into this, some of this is going to feel simplistic. Okay. The character for Acme Painting Company is a homeowner who wants to refresh and protect their house. When we do this, so at Switchboard, when we do this for, we do these brand camps 4 or 5 hours long, some organization comes in, we just go deep. We just go deep and try to understand everything about them, who their people are, who, like, the people inside their organization, the people they're trying to serve, the product that they sell, their competitors, just all this stuff that we're trying to understand. When we start writing these brand scripts, this thing that we're about to kind of look at is the deliverable. This is what you hope to get out of a branding kind of thing like this, is a brand script. There's way too much information. And if any of you like to cook, like, you start with a soup or a stock, like a really good sauce, and you start with a lot, and then you just keep working it. You keep it on the pan, and you keep stirring, and you keep reducing it. And what's left at the end is a concentrated, powerful, good thing, rather than a thing that's just full of fluff and water. And so a brand script is the same. We start with way too much information, and then you have to keep working it to get it really, really, really simple. So the character for Acme Painting Company, it's simple. It's just a homeowner who wants to refresh and protect their house. They have a problem. Remember, this is this external, internal, and philosophical language. The external problem is that they have the ugly house on the block. The internal problem is that they feel embarrassed about having the ugly house on the block. And then the philosophical problem is no one deserves to be ashamed of the place that they call home. I would say for Acme Painting Company, they probably shouldn't spend a lot of time, a lot of energy in trying to communicate from the philosophical side of this business. It doesn't quite make sense. But I also think that if they spent a lot of time just talking about how they make ugly houses less ugly, they won't sell nearly as many paint jobs for houses. But if they touched on the human aspect of why people actually, what actually motivates them to get their house painted, that there is embarrassment maybe behind it, that they're going to engage with humans on a really human kind of level. I think if you took this house that needs to get painted and you put it out in the middle of nowhere, out in the country, and no one ever comes by, the likelihood that they're going to paint that house with any sort of regularity or kind of take care of some of the exterior goes down dramatically. But if you live in a neighborhood where everybody's mowing their lawn all the time and the yards look great and people are taking care of their houses and everything is painted and beautiful and the shrubs are all trimmed, people feel a certain way, and that causes them to take action. As a human being, I might tell that person, don't find your identity, don't find your worth in what your house looks like. But just because I might think that as a person, I would want to encourage that person to not do that. it doesn't mean that selling motivation doesn't happen because of these internal feelings. So it's the fact that they feel embarrassed when their friends come up there, come up the steps of their house and it's chipped and the paint is no good. It's those kinds of feelings that actually cause them to pick up the phone or shoot an email trying to get something scheduled to get their house painted. And meets a guide. This is Acme Painting Company. And the empathy that Acme Painting Company has is, we get it. We understand how much your home matters to you. That's why we are trusted by homeowners for years with top ratings and proven expertise. Maybe you could say, that's why we have pursued X, Y, and Z certification, or that's why, because we understand how much your home means to you, that's why when we show up on set, we pretend this is our house, right? You want to show some empathy, and then you bring in your authority, you bring in your reviews, you bring in your certificates so that they understand the expertise side of it. But you have to lead with that empathy first. Who gives them a plan? Okay, Shane, this is hopefully there'll be a little bit more understanding here about the process plan. So step one of the process plan is get a free consultation. In a second here, if you guys can see my mouse, when we get to this one over here, this is the call to action one. The main call to action is get a free consultation. Is get a free consultation. So again, we're trying to show people that doing business with us is really, really easy. Step one is so easy. All you have to do on our website is click this button. So get a free consultation. Step two, we'll create an easy to understand work order. Step three, don't lift a finger. We will scrape, prep, paint, and finish. Step four, be proud of the place that you call home. So Acme Painting Company, in that 3 to 5, they're right in the middle. They have a 4-step process plan. When we were talking a little earlier about the process plan, remember that I said there are thousands. It's possible that it actually takes thousands of steps. There are thousands of things that need to happen for you to help your client, the person you're trying to serve, get to the end and have their problem actually officially solved. But we need to show them in a really concise kind of way that it is easy to do business with us. One thing I want to show you here, of these 4, step 1 is clicking a button on your website. Very easy, right? This is just your main call to action. Step 4 is in marketing, we call this aspirational identity. This is where your customer is trying to go. This is their final resting place of their marketing journey. This is them being happy. It's them smiling. It's them being proud of their home. So of these 4 things, 2 of them are nothing. One of them is so simple. It's just clicking this button. Step 4 is you get to invite people into your home and feel good about the place that you call home. So then it's really these middle 2. How do we show someone that is considering engaging with your brand that you are actually in control? You don't need to put all of the steps in here. You just need to convince me, someone that doesn't know or understand a lot about your world, that you are going to take care of me. So we're going to make you, Acme Painting says, we're going to make you an easy to understand work order, and then we're going to go to work. You don't even have to do it. We're going to do anything. And then after that simple little thing, you get to be proud of the place that you call home. So think about what that process plan is. The last one, whether it's number 3, 4, or 5, is the aspirational identity. It is just the place that your person is trying to get. And the very first one is the very easiest one. Just click the button on the website, which is the call to action. So their direct call to action is get a free consultation. What if they spend a bunch of time on your website and they just keep scrolling past all of the different, because again, it should show up over and over and over again, but they are unwilling to click that free consultation button? We need to give them a transitional call to action. Download our free home painting preparation guide. So again, maybe one of the things they're sitting there is thinking oh, I don't want to have to move the furniture, and we just planted the shrubs, and if they're going to come, they're going to destroy the shrubs. And so there's this thing that's holding them back from actually clicking the button, even though they know they want to do it. Inside of that home painting preparation guide, what Acme should do is they should take all of the main kind of opposition language that they've heard from their customers before they end up becoming customers, and they should put that into a document like this. It's what about all of my new shrubs? That could be inside of this home painting preparation guide. What about all my new shrubs? What do I need to do with those? And then you get to say, you don't have to do anything. We're going to take great care of your plants. We bring tarps and blankets, and we make sure that everything stays really, 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 really safe. We clean up the yard to make sure there aren't paint flecks and nails and, whatever. Or it's like, but we have all this heavy furniture. And so you're thinking to yourself, like, I can't say yes to them coming and painting the inside of my house because I don't have the physical capability to move, a 400-pound, buffet out of the kitchen. But that could be one of the questions. What about all of my heavy, bulky furniture? Don't worry about moving anything. We will move everything to the middle of the room, put tarps over it, and move it all back for you at the end. Like, all of these things are these little, like, these are things that I thought were hurdles that were big enough to prevent me from clicking on that first button. And you're just going to tell me they're nothing because we're going to take care of it. Continue to show your people that you have thought about them, you care about them, and you are ready to meet their need. And you're meeting it with your marketing even before they have verbalized it to you. So their story ends in success. I am proud of my home and I'm excited to share it with my friends and family. That's usually the truth of it. Like, we don't just want our things to look nice or, just for ourselves. For so many people, you want to entertain, you want to have someone come in and you maybe want to have a place for your friends or your family. So I think some language like this for Acme would be a really, really good thing. Or their story could end in failure. Without a new paint job, your home continues to be an embarrassment. Or without a new paint job, my home continues to be an embarrassment to me and my family. This little slide here just kind of shows, what it could look like to put it on like a little note card or something. This could sit by your desk. If you spend a lot of time, let's say you're working at your nonprofit and you spend a lot of time on the phone trying to help people understand what you do and asking them to donate or something like that, right? A little card like this that lays out all of these things and just keeping that in front of you could be a really valuable thing. And it's really boiling this thing down into its most basic point. This could sit on your desk. Something like this could, you maybe set a little reminder on your phone every Monday morning. You look at this thing just as a reminder. This is what we do. This is who we are. This is the need that we solve in our community. Just kind of keep that in front of you. So I'm just going to read it. The hero is a homeowner who wants to refresh their house because having the ugly house on the block feels so embarrassing. But Acme Painting Company gets how important your home is, and they have years of top ratings and proven expertise. So what should you do? Just get a free consultation. They'll make a work order for you. You don't even need to lift a finger, and then you get to be proud of the place that you call home. So don't wait. Get your free consultation now so that you can feel proud of your home and not embarrassed of the place that you live. So that is that's kind of how a brand script process works for a pretend business. A brand script is an ideal starting point for all of your creative messaging. There are cases where you'll want to present as many of the 7 steps as possible, like in a website homepage or a comprehensive pitch deck or something like that. But there are times when you only vocalize or expound on one step at a time, like in a social post. You could just pick one of those and just write a little post all about that kind of thing, or a marketing email. One of my favorite things to do with a brand script is something called a drip email campaign. A drip email campaign, if you don't know, is something where you write it ahead of time and people get dropped into your system, and then over some sort of period or cadence, with some kind of cadence, they receive these emails from you. We are all on 1,000 of those mailing lists. And if they provide no value, they feel icky to get. But if they meet a need, we don't unsubscribe. We all know the ones that we quickly unsubscribe from, and they're the ones that we don't, for whatever reason, we don't unsubscribe from them because we feel like they're meeting some sort of need for us. So in a drip email campaign, I love the idea of doing a 7-part email campaign, and you just take each of these and you just expound on each of those in each email, which over the course of that little email campaign, your people will really understand what it is that you do, the need that you're trying to meet, and how you go about doing that. So sometimes you should put all of them there, like in how do you structure a website, and sometimes you could put just one. Whatever messaging needs you may have, starting from your brand script will ensure brand unity across all your marketing endeavors. One of the things I like to say about a brand script, once you actually go to the work and the energy of building your brand script, it's like you want to communicate from it no matter what you're doing. If you're doing a billboard, right? A billboard should have 5 to 7 words tops. Start driving around central Minnesota and look at the absolute pile of terrible billboards with 40, 50 words. Nobody can read that. And so we put too much information on billboards. I should be done. I could go on and on about the bad billboards, but really boil down your message. So if you're thinking about a billboard, like jump off, use your brand script as your starting point. Jump off of that. Every single social post you do, jump off of that. Email campaigns, website copy. You're getting featured in some industry publication, and somebody calls and they're like, "Hey, we need 3 paragraphs and 4 photos because we want to feature you and your organization." What is it that I say? Oh no, start with your brand script. If you always start from that spot, you will have the kind of consistency that these big giant brands with all of their unlimited resources, it's the kind of thing that they have. This consistent thing over and over and over again. So it doesn't matter how big or small the marketing thing is, start from there. My little analogy, it's like walking to the end of a dock. If you're in Minnesota, hopefully in the next handful of months, we all get to experience this. Walk to the end of a dock and you jump off and swim a little bit. If you get back out of the water and onto that same dock and jump off the same end, and you just keep doing that over and over again, you can't get far away. You are going to stay close, right? Jump off of your brand script, communicate a bit, and then get back onto the brand script. Jump off the dock, swim a little bit, get back onto that dock. But if you jump off the dock and you start swimming to your neighbors and you get on their dock and then you jump in and you keep swimming without trying hard and without really even intending to do it, you can get really far away from your core message. But what we need to do is we need to get back to our home base and we need to say the same thing that home base tells us, brand script, over and over and over again. So this is high level. This is a good way to think about marketing for your business, your organization, your nonprofit, your art. And let's jump into questions. You can ask questions now about Acme. You could ask questions about more of this high level stuff. You could ask specific questions about your organization, your business, your idea, and I will do my best. I make no guarantees that I have all the answers, but if there's something I can help with, I'd love to help.
So on behalf of Guy and CMAB, thank you so much for attending today. I'm glad that we were able to do this webinar, and hopefully we'll be able to do more things like this in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to meet you.